It's time for Living with Victory, a program of hope and encouragement brought to you by Friends of Compassion and listeners like you. Now here's your host, President of Compassion for Kids, Tony Giorgio, with today's message of perseverance.
Welcome to Living with Victory. Hey, I'm your host, Tony Giorgio. Proving life isn't about waiting for the storms to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. It's called Perseverance, and I know you've heard it before. We are streaming, by the way, the program. You can listen live online at www.livingwithvictory.org. That's our new website. And you go to listen live on the home page and click on our logo. We'd love to hear from you. Just drop us an email at livingwithvictory@gmail.com. Also, remember, support for this ministry, all our programs, comes from our listeners and friends. You all out there help to keep us going. We have youth programs going. We have this radio ministry. So just remember us, and in your prayers also. Today's program, we're going to continue. It's part two of last week. If you remember, if you're listening in, you can fight City Hall. We were talking about passing law with the Florida state to help keep the lights on when the doctor says don't turn them off on seriously ill children who are on life support or had other machines that they needed. We were going in there to pass the law, and we spent maybe 2.5 months or so up and down to Tallahassee, and my wife and I stayed there in that little old Motel 6 that was down the block from the Capitol, and going in every day to sessions. And as you remember, at the end, boy, were we shocked. Unfortunately, in that first year, we did everything we possibly could, but we had a representative who supposedly was supposed to sponsor the bill, who was actually on the side of the utility. He just torpedoed the whole thing, tried not to get the bill in to be voted on by committees, because if you don't know the process, it has to go through different committees before they can actually get it to what we call the General Assembly to vote on. It takes time, and there's deadlines involved because they have hundreds of bills, maybe 1,000, that they have to go through. And this time, he kept just missing deadlines. And we got through all 5 committees, and they voted its worthiness to get to be read. When it finally came to be read, we went to the Senate President's office, and we talked to her. She assured us she was going to read it. And her aide and everybody else said, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. She's for it. And as you know, it never made it to be read. And if you don't read it, well, nobody can vote on it. Time's out. And then you have to come back the next session, which was the next year, and start the process all over again, because it just wipes out. You can't just pick it up and keep moving. You talk about perseverance and faith. And the belief system we had here that God is with us to just keep us going, man, when something like that happens, that's when you use that umbrella, because, yeah, it's raining, it's storming on you, but you got to dance in the rain. What would we have done if we said, forget it, it ain't worth it, I'm going home? That's not what you do. We ended up going home. Bill wasn't passed, okay? 2.5 months, all that, at least a year to a year and a half worth of work, and it was over with. We had gone home. That was it. Well, in the second try, all right, we'll move forward into the next session. And here comes part 2. We still rallied for the bill. We talked to people in our neighborhoods again. We kept the thing alive every single month. Every month before that session. I think the session was in February. and it went through, I think, May that year. It was wild. So we went back, but what we had to do is get new representatives. And believe it or not, after all of that, nobody in our area wanted to sponsor the bill. None of them. They wouldn't touch it. We called around to different representatives because anybody could have sponsored the bill. It didn't matter. It didn't have to be your area. We caught a senator in Fort Lauderdale, Senator Dawson, who called me back and said, yeah, I'd be happy to sponsor the bill. So we got her. Now we needed somebody in the House of Representatives. Understand why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this just to reinforce the fact that you must dance in the rain. You can't give up because God is your umbrella. That's number one. Number two, as it says in Joshua, I reiterate in chapter 1, verse 9, have not I commanded you, be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Man, let me tell you, if that ain't something to listen to, then nothing is, because we hung on that promise. So that's why we were doing what we were doing all over again. Well, we did get our second rep from Tampa, Florida, which was on the west coast from us, and the representative, Sarah Romeo, the sweetest person you ever want to meet for a politician, and she took it. So between the two, now we put it in. We started the process again, only this time I went a step further. Governor Bush, Jeff Bush, I was in contact with through an email. He did get me to meet with his lieutenant governor at the time in Orlando. We spoke about it. They assured me. This time I wanted to hear it sort of from the horse's mouth, they say. I needed him to tell me. We brought some of the kids with him. My nephew Albert was there, and my niece, and we went, and we got an audience with the governor. Sit down and talk to him. Went in and asked him point blank, are you interested in this? Are you going to veto it when it gets to your desk? Do we have some sort of assurance that at least you're not going to knock it out the window, because these kids can't take this, you know? And he said, don't worry, real gracious guy. He said, don't worry about it. He said, yes, I'm interested, and if they don't change it, by the time it gets to my desk, yeah, I'll sign it. I've got to tell you, when Sarah Romeo brought it up in the House, she wasn't the only one that sponsored. We had 17 more co-sponsors that year. 17. Last time we had one. We had 17 sponsors. Think of that. Sometimes how you may not know what's going on, but God does. And then Senator Dawson in the Senate, she got 2 or 3 senators more on the bill. So now we've got some more people on board who put their name to it. Big difference. And you know, yeah, you have to remember this there. It says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. No, but you've got God. You don't have to worry about the guns blazing or the storms coming at you. That's a promise. God promised that. Jesus is our armor. So you don't have to worry. So we're headed home. We're headed home. And I'll tell you, the scene in between the Republicans and the Democrats up there that year was ferocious. They were at each other's throat at every turn. I mean, they couldn't get together for a squat. They just, nothing was agreeable. Comes time for the vote. The vote comes up, and they brought the bill up for a vote, and they voted on it. Now they've got a board. If you've ever seen a session, they've got a board, and everybody votes, and it comes up how they vote, yay or nay, who they are. They voted unanimously for that bill. The entire Senate, the entire House. There wasn't one nay. They were all yay. And the real neat part of it was, we're up in the galley with all the kids. The kids are just delightful and delirious, and then the parents, I mean, we're with it. You got to see this. I mean, you know. And here are the Senate Majority Leader and the Senate minority leader who couldn't get along to rub two nickels together, never mind anything else. And here they are standing side by side in the middle of the Senate chambers looking up at us. I wish I had a camera, but they don't allow pictures in there. And immediately looked up at us after it came and actually gave us thumbs up, the two of them. And then, I'm not telling you this for anything, but God is just perfect. He brought, because the Senate president announced it, and he thanked my wife and I and the organization and the families. And picture this, the entire Senate, every person, Democrat, Republican, stood to their feet and gave us a standing ovation. I almost fell over. I mean, I could not. God does things. God works in mysterious ways, and God knows the way. It took us 2 years. The second session, we had a law in place. And I'll tell you, we will be going a little bit further into this. Next week, we will tell you the rest of the story. There'll be a part 3 because there's so much to this, but I'm going to bring together what exactly happened after the bill, what it did, how it affected people, and how much good it did, and waiting and having that perseverance. Till next week, we'll have part 3, and we will tell you the rest of the story. But you have to remember, like I say, when your troubles hit you and you think there's no way to turn and it's not going to work out the way you think, that's not true. Because it is written that no weapon formed against you is going to prosper. I know I'm paraphrasing, but trust me, with God on your side, you just have to keep dancing. Dance in that rain. It's not just something to say. God is your umbrella. And remember that scripture I quoted, Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. He's telling you, don't worry about it. Until next week, folks. Remember, you have to keep dancing in the rain. And remember, we have an entire website now. It's almost done, but I want you to go there at www.livingwithvictory.org. We have links to our YouTube shows, GodTube shows, and if you'll tell your friends, they can listen in anywhere they are on Sunday mornings at 9:30, or listen to some of the previous shows. So have a blessed day. God is your umbrella again. And next week, we'll have the rest of the story to this and how it all turned out. This is Tony Giorgio saying, have a blessed day. Remember, livingwithvictory.org. And for other information, you can call us.
You've been listening to Living with Victory with your host, motivational and inspirational speaker, Tony Giorgio. Support for Living with Victory comes from Friends of Compassion and listeners like you. Your tax-deductible donations can be sent to Compassion for Kids, P.O. Box 1982, Maggie Valley, North Carolina, 28751. Tony is also available to speak to your group or organization. You can call him at 828-926-4600. Join us again next week at this time for another uplifting story of dancing in the rain.
Jesus is with me when the storm clouds gather. He's standing by my side.